I've been here since the beginning, so I have seen thank you, an awesome transformation, and I think the staff and the board agree that this year is the best year yet, so thank you for making that true and possible. Are they lined up? Okay, yes. Roxane Gay, Alicia Garza, the other person coming up is Elizabeth Lubin. If you would please come to the stage, because you are also being introduced. So Elizabeth is our musician. There she is. Welcome. This is an exciting new thing that is happening at all of the headliners this weekend, which is that the Bushwick Book Club of Oakland has brought in these musicians that have created original songs inspired by the books of the headliners. And so this original song, first time heard tonight by this audience, by our wonderful musician Elizabeth Lubin, is inspired by Roxane's book, which is so cool. So thank you. And also, if you want to know more about Bushwick Book Club, it is there's so many words on this page. It's an amazing organization, and there are flyers that I think is important that you go check it out, and if you want to know more about the musicians, you can find out more about it there. So one thing, Elizabeth, I'm sorry, before you start, I need to say something about Aya de León. Last year, Aya was our program director because we had no executive director. And so she essentially lifted this entire event with the help of some very key strategic people. So her bio says that she's the former program director of the Bay Area Book Festival, and yet I honestly believe that this festival would not be happening this year if it weren't for Aya. And so that transition year was a heavy lift, and she is a hugely important member of our community. And so I do want to just take a moment to let you know who is moderating this panel tonight. Aya de León, in addition to being the former director of the Bay Area Book Festival and also a current board member, led the effort to prioritize both diversity and community organizing in this festival and beyond. She is our current poet laureate, everyone. I don't know if She has been the director of June Jordan's Poetry for the People at UC Berkeley, where she continues to teach creative writing. She is the award-winning novelist, or actually not only novelist, author of 10 novels, and she's also written other kinds of books, notably children's books. Her works have appeared in the New York Times, Harper's Bazaar, The Guardian UK. Importantly, I think, the best American mystery and suspense. Very cool. Also deaf poetry, because she's a spoken word artist. She's also an organizer for climate justice with the Black Hive at the Movement for Black Lives, and a dues-paying member of the Working Families Party. I also want you all to know about a cool new cultural project that she started called Formation. If you want to know more about Formation, also flyers, so pick up all the literature because there's all this important stuff. But Formation is a monthly gathering for intergenerational community organizing that includes hip-hop, dance, spoken word, acoustic music, all of this stuff happening monthly at La Peña. So until we see you next year, we'll see you at La Peña. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Elizabeth Lubin, and I'm here with the Bushwick Book Club of Oakland, which I love, 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 love so much. So I will say some extra words about them because the organization is really amazing, and if you haven't been a part of anything like what they're doing, I recommend it because they're doing something really special. How their normal events work is each cycle there's a book that is going to be read, and artists come together and write a song inspired by it. And when they reached out about this event, I was really excited because one of the first connections I had with Roxane Gay was our shared Haitian-American identities, and how infrequent it is that I get to read artists that write from the Haitian-American diaspora. And so it was really important to me that when they reached out, I'm like, I want to read that book. So I read some of the bad feminist essays, and this book kind of speaks on the words that you say about like wanting to speak on what femininity is, what feminism is, but not wanting to speak on what it means for other cultures around the world, and not wanting to have to label what feminism is for not only in Haiti, but in places around the world where feminism might look different, and not trying to be perfect in how you brand something, but being whole and being intersectional, and knowing that once you kind of bring all those different weaves together, you will be working for the greater good of humanity. So the words that I repeat in the song are in the seams and on the line, because those are the things that I feel like are woven together between all of our different identities. And the song is called Knowing Only to Know. In the seams, upon a reason and a thread pulled in the sea, a pause between and a truth has said, and hold both ends, one to cut so the next line the shame leaves behind. On the line, voice that travels but still speaks in kind. On the letting go, writing words that couldn't be defined.
Bushwick Book Club for getting us started right. All right, y'all, I'm gonna read a couple bios. Yes, it's brief. Roxane Gay's writing appears in Best American Mystery Stories 2014, Best American Short Stories, Best Sex Writing, A Public Space, McSweeney's Tin House, Oxford American, American Short Fiction, Virginia Quarterly Review, and many others. She is a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. She is the author of the books Haiti, An Untamed State, Bad Feminist, Difficult Women, and Hunger. She is also the author of World of Wakanda for Marvel. Yes, okay, some of us know. She has several books forthcoming and is also at work on television and film projects. Roxane Gay, y'all. Tonight with formerly of the Bay, Alicia Garza, who is an author, political strategist, organizer, and founder of the Black Futures Lab to make Black communities powerful in politics. She's the co-creator of #Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter Global Network, an international organizing project to end state violence and oppression against Black people. She currently serves as the Senior Vice President for Movement, Infrastructure, and Explorations at the JPB Foundation. Alicia is the co-founder of Supermajority, a new home for women's activism, and a senior advisor to the president of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Her work has been featured in Time, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times, and The Guardian. She was on the cover of Time's 100 Most Influential People in the World issue, and has received numerous awards, prizes, and honors. Alicia's first book, The Purpose of Power, How We Come Together When We Fall Apart, was released in 2020, and she warns you, hashtags don't start movements, people do. The Bay's own Alicia Garza. She's living in Atlanta. I know that we're so grateful that you came back to spend this evening with us. So I just want to say, you know, since last year when I was program director here at the festival, having become an organizer, I felt like my job was to capture infrastructure for the resistance. Because book festivals can be places where people talk about books and issues and everyone goes out feeling really inspired. But ideas and inspiration don't change the world all by themselves. Vision and ideas need organizing to build the power to create lasting change. So I had this vision of pairing authors with organizers to give our audiences a better shot at becoming part of the engine that actually makes the changes we want to see. And even though I'm not a program director this year, I'm in conversation with folks, and this is the behind the scenes, y'all. So originally, they were gonna pair Roxane with someone else, and I was like, no, let's get Alicia Garza. And everyone was like, oh, that's a great idea. So yes, thanks to everyone for agreeing that was a great idea. And thanks, Alicia, for coming. And I have to say, in my classes at UC Berkeley, I teach a class on Black freedom, and I teach your book, The Purpose of Power. And it's just incredible how it opens their eyes to the power of organizing. And I want to say to the audience, buy this book. I am an audio listener, and so I have the book in audio, and if any of you listened to her podcast, especially during the pandemic, Lady Don't Take Note, you already know her voice is lovely. So I highly recommend the audio. So, I'm excited about this conversation, and I have to say, Roxane, I think of you as the hardest working West Indian woman in the literary industry. And back in 2014, you wrote 2 books in a year, and I remember I didn't even know you could do that. #goals, right? I was all fired up. But it's incredible now, 11 years later, we're looking at the Portable Feminist Reader, your new book that you edited. And I had this thought, in an era of undoing, right? We're seeing all this progress that our communities have worked for, and then we've got this executive, yada yada government undoing some of that. I've been thinking a lot about what cannot be undone. And yeah, I've been musing on that. And Roxane, I think it's so amazing that you were selected by Penguin Classics. This book is already a classic at 672 pages. But I'm thrilled that they picked you, because that means that we will forever have this text, this record of your mind and what you thought was fundamental in understanding feminism, and this opportunity to be led by your mind, and that can never be taken away. And as I was reading the book, I was so excited to see what you thought needed to be there as a writer, a scholar, and a public intellectual. And there were some readings that I knew well, and there were some that were completely new to me. I loved the mix of old school primary source and then kind of web-based pop culture. So y'all, you need to get this book. And one document that both of you reference in your books is, of course, the Combahee River Collective. And I just want to shout out the Bay Area's own Margot Okazawa-Ray. Is Margot in the house tonight? Okay, we invited Margot, and I guess she couldn't make it, but just really appreciating Margot as one of the members of the Combahee River Collective, sister who is both Black and Asian, and brought especially that Pacific anti-war perspective. So let's give her flowers. And so I want to start off the questions. The Combahee crew was also referenced by one of our previous authors back in April here with the Book Fest, Alexis Pauline Gums, who was in conversation with the Bay Area's own Malika Parker. Some of us were there. Yeah, and it was moderated by Sister Sci-Fi. Is she in the audience tonight? Oh, okay. That's all right. Anyway, so the question was, how do you define feminism, right? Many people get this question. So, and what I loved, Alexis Pauline Gums said this, quote, "For me, it's always Black feminism. And Black feminism is the insistence that everything is interconnected. It is the question of how to create a life-giving world. This is why in 1977, when the members of the Combahee River Collective said, if Black women were to be free, everyone else would necessarily have to be free, because our freedom requires the destruction of all systems of oppression. That's what Black feminism is, and in my," and this was the part that she said that I was like, what? She said, "In my opinion, feminism unmodified is not an accountable form. There are other feminisms. There's more specific feminisms. There's Black British feminism. There's anti-racist white feminism. There's intersectional feminism. But anyone who's saying feminism unmodified, I'm just gonna have to ask for clarification." So I loved that, and I've been thinking about that. It was an aha moment for me. And so I guess my question to both of you, to begin with, is what are some of the modifiers that you use for your feminism? And I feel like, Roxane, you really broke a lot open with the modifier bad, right? For those of us who felt like we weren't doing it well enough, but are there particular modifiers either of you use on your feminism, and what you might want to say about that?
Now it's on. When I wrote Bad Feminist, I really was thinking about how do we create a space in feminism for those of us who feel that we are imperfect in the ways in which we live our feminist truth. And I was earnest about it, and I stand by everything I wrote. But I have been asked in the decades since, would you change anything? No. But I would clarify, because clarifiers are really important. People took that to mean that they could sort of do anything and then call it feminist. And that was never, ever my intention. And it shows how lazy people can be if you give them something that makes doing hard things easier. And so I had a lot of pro-life women writing me and saying, I'm pro-life, I'm a bad feminist. I'm like, but you're not a feminist. And, it's hard. I'm a people pleaser. I'm a Libra, and so it's hard for me to be like frank. But honestly, I was just like, no, we do have to draw boundaries, we have to draw lines. And so for me, my boundaries are around identity. I'm a Black feminist first, foremost, forever and always. I'm definitely a Haitian-American feminist because, as Elizabeth was saying, feminism does look different in different parts of the world, and Western feminists often feel that we should be dictating to the rest of the world what their feminism should look like in practice. And no, we should just shut the hell up and follow. And so I start with those two things, and also queer feminism, because Lord knows that queer people have been left out of the feminist project forever. And we have to force ourselves in, and we're seeing the need for queer feminism as we see what's happening to the trans community, both here and in the UK, where I just came from last Sunday, and I mean, they're a mess over there. They don't know what they're doing. And so qualifications really do matter. What about you?
I just kind of want to sit here and listen to you. And I was sitting here going, wait, I have to talk? Okay. Yeah, I mean, similarly, if I was going to use a qualifier, I would say Black queer feminism. But what I sat here and kind of emoted for a second as we were talking about who gets to define is the thing that I think I worry most about is that in addition to people just not being feminists, the almost like a way that people can get like an allergic reaction to the word feminism as opposed to embracing. And so I spend a lot of time with folk who are like, well, I'm not a feminist. And I'm like, well, why not? Why not? And I get it, right? Like there's all of these ways, Dr. Crenshaw has kind of laid this out for us many times, where white supremacy culture has kind of done a thing to us, right? It's done a thing to us where when you don't acknowledge the multiplicities in the world, and you do acknowledge, right, whiteness as the standard and the assumptive standard, sure, I'm allergic to that too. But that doesn't mean we throw out the baby with the bathwater. There is something very powerful and basic about the right of people to live in their full dignity. And so when we say, I'm not a feminist, that's what you're saying. I don't actually believe that people should be able to live in their full dignity, regardless of gender, right? And at the same time, there's a way in which, for me, that erasure is also still a part of the white supremacist project, right? And so we have to be careful, too, about not perpetuating a dynamic that we're saying that we actually want to dismantle. So that's the thing that's on my mind, especially in this political context, where everything is attempting to be rewritten, right? Everything is attempting to be rewritten. And I was doing an exercise with folks the other day, and I said, okay, and I'll give you this framework in a second, Earth 2, where we live right now, authoritarian Earth, right? We can have an executive order tomorrow that says, actually, we're not going to use African-American anymore. We're going back to colored, right? So that's where we're at. So the question that you asked just made me sit with, actually, we need to spend a little more time protecting our stuff, right? And yes, being clear, yes, being nuanced, but definitely not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, especially now.
Ashe. All right. Yes. So I was so moved by Elizabeth's song, and it just flows right into something I really wanted to ask you, Roxane. And you've spoken to it, right? I always think about, my own roots are both African-American out of the South and Caribbean, and I always think of your Caribbean roots, and I'm always surprised, though maybe I shouldn't be, that the mainstream is just completely unable to track you as a Haitian writer, you know, despite the fact that your first novel is literally titled Haiti. it's like the racism, particularly the anti-Haitian, anti-Blackness, makes people unable to hold your brilliance and your Haitian immigrant roots at the same time. And yet, you know, for anyone who doesn't know the history, the Haitian people were the only nation in the Americas to successfully revolt against slavery and seize control of their nation, right? And arguably have been getting punished ever since by white supremacy. So I guess the question that I really want, you know, you've claimed yourself as a Haitian-American feminist. Can you just share a little bit about how your Haitian lineage interacts with your feminism or is formative?
They're deeply entwined. I was raised by two very Haitian parents who were always clear, like, this is a temporary stop. We're going home. And so I understood from the very first time I could that I was Haitian and that this was a way stop and that I should be proud of where I come from and who I am and that my ancestors were free. And the psychic freedom that gives you cannot be underestimated. And that is certainly why, as you know, they are always trying to punish Haiti. And as we talk about all of the things going on in the world right now, Haiti is in a deep and profound crisis that not anyone cares about because it's Haiti. And we don't have any oil, and we don't have any rare earth minerals, and we don't have a billionaire who can buy his way into the Oval Office and make people care. And so part of my feminism has to be reminding people that yes, the world is complicated and we have to pay attention to the many conflicts around the world, genocide included, but we have to also remember that Haiti is here, and in the capital, life is fairly untenable because gangs have taken over. It has gotten so bad that the government is hiring Blackwater to go in and try and solve the problem. That's how bad it has gotten, and that is beyond bad because Blackwater is beyond evil. And God only knows what they're gonna do. And so it's so important for me to keep an eye on my identity. And you know, people will call me what they're gonna call me, and it doesn't bother me at all. I don't even waste a single moment on it because I know who I am. And I am very proud of it. And Lord knows my dad does the work of the Lord. Don't sit next to him on an airplane because you're going to hear all about me. I'm sorry in advance.
Thank you. All right, so where are my West Indians, my Caribbean folks at? Are they in the house? All right, where are my Haitian people at? Is Haiti in the house?
All right, all three of us. What's up?
Yes. So, you know, here in the Bay, we're, you know, it's not like New York or Florida, but we are here. I say we are here. So, you know, I'm nosy, I got lots of questions, but what I really want to do now is just turn it over to the two of you to talk to each other. Do you have questions for each other, things you've noticed in each other's work, or even in the conversation already today? So let me turn it over.
I'm going first.
I'm going second.
I mean, I'm so curious to hear your take on the, like, reversal back to traditional values and traditional femininity that is, like, gaining some traction right now, this trad wives thing. I'm like, I'm not up. And so I'm wondering if you
I'm
could,
ready.
could you put me on? Could you put me on?
Yes.
This is a trend I'm not following, but I heard about it.
Yes.
And I was like, what? What? Just enlighten me.
I'm deep in TikTok. I'm deep. And I was actually really late to TikTok. My 78-year-old dad put me on. Because Haitian TikTok is awesome. It is unparalleled. It is so funny. Like, there is Haitian TikTok, Haitian Instagram, Haitian YouTube. Haitian YouTube is a bit sketchy because that's where you have to go and learn about the teas that cure COVID. But look, just drink the tea. But what we're seeing right now, there are a couple things going on. One, the media is trying to push this narrative that the country is reverting back to conservative values. This is not something that's grounded in reality. This is the kind of headline that sells papers or gets eyeballs to look at content online. we are seeing a streak of conservatism, but it's not really conservative values that these people are espousing. It's just racism and xenophobia. They are tired of having to live in a diverse United States. And they feel that if we can just call ourselves conservative, somehow we can get rid of all of these pesky people of color and return ourselves to a white nation, except for the fact that this was never a white nation. This was an indigenous nation, and we are on stolen land. So you have to always call things out for what they are, and I think our responsibility right now as people is to be really clear about what's going on and to resist these sort of simplistic narratives that, oh, we're getting back to conservatism. No, we're not. They're just trying to erase us from public life, whether we are different because of our sexuality, our gender, our race and ethnicity, our immigration status, etc. Part and parcel of that is getting women under control and making them have more white babies. They don't care about if I have a baby or not. They probably prefer I didn't, which makes me want to have like 10. Except that I'm 50, TikTok. But part of getting women under control is making them believe that life would be better if they just stayed home and raised those babies and like made milk from scratch. It's absurd. I'm sorry, but ballerina farms, can we just talk about her? There's this woman from Utah who's married to the son of the guy who started JetBlue. And they live on a farm they call ballerina farms because before he got her pregnant, she was a ballerina. He, of course, sabotaged her career to make her have children. And like well, let me not put that on her. She seems happy. She says she's happy, except that she doesn't smile all that much. And one day her husband gave her an egg carrier as a gift when she thought he was gonna give her a trip, right. He thought he was gonna give her a trip to Europe. And I'm just like, girl, you are cute. You could get another one. Scrubs are abundant. And so what we're seeing with her, the Nara Smiths of the world, who many of them are Mormon, we should also know, that is not accidental, is this desire to tell women that there is an ideal womanhood, and that means you are thin. It means you make everything from scratch. It means you stay home with the children and don't take good jobs away from good men. And we have to resist these narratives. Now, if you wanted, my mother stayed home to raise my brothers and I credit that 100% for the reason that I'm here on this stage. Because she was there, she was invested, and she seemed to like us. And that goes a long way. And she gave us a little extra homework after we did our school homework. Like, she was just there because she was like, my 3 black children are going to survive this racist country. And she was right. So, I get it. But that is not a choice that every woman wants. Like, it could not be me. It couldn't. Like, I love children, but we are going to have to separate for 8 hours a day. And the fact that nobody wants to admit that for many women, the choice is that they would prefer to go to work, or that there is no choice. Because all of these trad wives have husbands who make a lot of money. And most of that money is generational wealth. These are not self-made people who just happened upon the farm. No, they come from really wealthy families. And again, this is why we have to be clear when we talk about things. We can't just give in to the easy soundbite, like, oh, trad wife. There's so much more behind it. And it's insidious. And I am so concerned about it because as feminists, we're told, like, it's a woman's choice. And it's like, yes, but girl, historically, that has not been a good choice for women. Because when he decides to trade you in for a younger model, you are going to enter poverty with your children. And you are going to stay there for a very long time. And so that's what I think about that.
I'm going to ask one more question. So, what's the relationship, though, between that and the dynamic that you were talking about earlier? Like, I feel like we are in a season of backlash. And so there's both like a blacklash. It's not Freudian at all, but that's not what I was trying to say, but it was. There's like a Black Lives Matter backlash. There's a Women's March backlash. And then there's just like a backlash around the way that we have advanced politics. So identity has become a bad word in almost every political space. Almost everyone. Well, you know, we're in a bad place, but if we just talked about identity less, we'd be in a better place. Delulu. That's a new one I learned too. So can you, I'm just trying to tease out here, like, what is the relationship? Like, is this trad wife thing backlash?
Yes.
Great. But how should people understand this? Because I think there is a narrative out there that, you know, we've gone too far with this feminist thing. And, you know, we're not having enough white babies, so that's part of the problem. And then, people are trying to get rid of their babies, and so that's part of the problem. And then we have people who just get to be whatever identity they want. That's a problem. Like, what?
Again, middle class and upper middle class and wealthy white men, cisgender, heterosexual, blah, 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 all of the bad things. We're just seeing, and I don't know who originally said it, but when people start to achieve equity, it starts to feel like oppression to the people who hold power. And that's 100% what we're seeing here. We're starting to just get a little bit too much, and what's so sad is that we're barely achieving any kind of equity. We are still, when you look at the cents on the dollar that people make, all the way down from Asian women at 98 cents on the dollar, all the way down to Latina and indigenous women who are making like 55 cents on the dollar to white men. That's what they consider equity, and that's too much. That's a bridge too far. Oh, you mean that people, there are other genders? Oh, that's too much for me and my, let me not go there. There's a lot of challenging the status quo that the people who have established the status quo cannot tolerate. But we cannot let that dictate what we do. We cannot let that dictate our laws, our social norms. And it starts with the Democrats developing a backbone of some kind. Every time I say this, people are like, why do you only criticize the Democrats, criticize the Republicans? I'm sorry, but that goes without saying. Obviously, they're the worst. Obviously, I stand against everything that they're doing. I can't reach those people. They are unreachable. That is not for me. We are having to reach the apathetic people who did not show up for Kamala Harris. And we have to listen to why and not dismiss it and sneer at it like, oh, yeah, you should have voted, but it's over. So how do we reach them, and how do we not alienate them? And how do we get Democrats to stop believing this nonsense that, oh yes, equality and equity are goals that we shouldn't be going for, DEI is something that we shouldn't be caring about, and you see how quickly all of these corporations have folded because they never wanted to do it in the first place. They did it because they thought it was going to be economically, yes,
It was on brand.
beneficial. It
Yeah.
was totally on brand, and look, and bless Target's heart. I loved Target with a D. I loved them. I would walk into Target and that little discount aisle in the front hated to see nothing. $300 later, double income, no kids. My wife and I are their Target customers. And we have not been there since. And it's over now. It's done. I don't go to Walmart either. There's this thing called local stores. And I try to, go there when I can. We have to tell these corporations, these politicians, et cetera, that you may think it's not in your best interest to support us, but it absolutely is. And we will show you just how much. So it's all part of the same thing. And I'm so disappointed by the way that so many people are obeying in advance and capitulating in advance and acting like all of this is a done deal. And I'm not an optimist, I'm a realist, but let's be real. The Trump administration is being held together by cocaine, Adderall, and like some Scotch tape that's been used 3 times. They have a lot of power, but they're dumb. And it's really important for us to be ready for when they make that fatal mistake, because they will. They will absolutely make a terrible mistake. And we have to then capitalize on that. And that means that we have get everybody information, as Beyonce has already told us. By the way, go see Cowboy Carter.
Oh, 7-Eleven.
It's so good. Oh my God. I've seen it twice and I'm going to see it again. It's so good. It's great. But let me ask you, because we are dealing with all of this backlash, we are dealing with unprecedented times in some ways, but also not. I mean, this has happened before. And as an organizer, a lot of your work from the outside seems predicated on getting people to be invested and to believe that there is hope for change. So how do we organize in this current political climate when so many people are even afraid to admit that yes, they're a feminist, or yes, that they're queer, yes, they believe in equity for everyone?
Well, there's a couple things that I think are helpful, useful, and important. The first thing is, it is actually important for us to reach outside of our, like, these circles, right? No shade. And there's a lot of people who actually are looking for a movement that have not been invited in. They haven't even been asked. They haven't even been invited. They haven't been asked, like, what do you want for yourself, for your family, for your kids, for your future? People, like, we ask each other those things all the time. It's a part of our culture. But there needs to be more people in this. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, the thing I find so interesting about organizing with people who are not already activists is that we're on the same page. We are on the same page, but again, it is this question of, have you ever engaged somebody about their vision for the future, or also just how they see the world? We get a lot of headlines about people that actually don't deal with the complexity of who we are, right? You know, just if somebody were to describe you that was like a Democratic Party consultant, you would have like 4 labels, right? But the truth of the matter is, there's actually a lot of people out here who are very hungry for feminism, who are already feminists. There are a lot of people out here who are anti-racist. There are a lot of people out here who share these same values, but they are flattened into 2-dimensional subjects. And so a lot of our work in organizing is making people 3-dimensional or even more, and encouraging that, right? So this is why I love Bad Feminist, because I was like, okay, come on and nuance. Come on and nuance. Like, we are all the things all the time, and what we are always grappling with is, how do we give ourselves permission and be rigorous and accountable at the same time? Yeah, cool. Last thing I'll say on this piece around organizing is, and like the hope and inspiring people that change can happen, is mostly not about words, it's about doing. And it's about fighting together and winning. A lot of people feel hopeless because they're not feeling victories, right? What movements do is bring you in community with lots of people that you can fight together with for the same things. And it has very much felt, right? And we have all very much experienced attacks on our movements that make us feel like, oh, the waters are receding. I get people like, why aren't y'all protesting no more? Why aren't y'all protesting no more? I don't see you out in the streets. I'm like, there's a lot happening, actually. Protest isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. There is also the work of sitting at people's kitchen tables with them and talking with them about, how are you making ends meet right now? And good for you. How are you doing this? There is also the work of people getting reoriented to this moment, right? We've been having a lot of conversations about authoritarianism and fascism and what the hell is going on in the White House, and Black folks are like, water is wet. The sky is blue. And what did y'all think Jim Crow was?
Right.
What was segregation? We've been doing this for a long time. So the question becomes, what are we doing differently right now? And I will say one thing that's getting in the way of hope, honestly, is there is a feeling that, God, we're doing this again. we're doing this again. We done told y'all. We done told y'all. We're doing this again. We gotta like do this again. And while simultaneously being told, stop talking about what you're dealing with. We're not gonna talk about identity anymore. We're not gonna say racial justice anymore. We're gonna call it DEI. We're gonna just keep using all these code words to talk about like a cancer in this country that is killing people. And it's killing people around the world, right? So I think that's the big barrier, is are Black folks in particular still a part of this coalition that is supposed to take this country from authoritarianism back to some form of democracy? The last thing I'll say about this piece in particular is the reason to broaden beyond our already converted is that is actually also where hope lives, right? There is something about seeing auntie and grandma and other folks activated when they could very well just be like, I'm good, right? But the other reason, frankly, is this is a country of 360 million people. And we have some growing to do. We have some real growing to do. So some of that inspiration, some of that hope comes from taking risks together, fighting to win together on basic things. Medicaid, right? There's all of these ways and places in which people are like, okay, we gotta get it together. And I'm gonna say something maybe not popular, which is, it's shitty right now. It's shitty right now. Like sometimes where hope comes from is like, we made it today.
You know, I have to say I agree, because I'm often asked, because, you know, when someone brings a Black person to their organization or their school, they're like, oh, what are you feeling hopeful about? And I'm like, nothing. I always say hope is not my ministry, and I've written about this many times. Hope, I feel like, is just sort of like the work deferred. Someone else will get me there. This is what I'm gonna hope for. But I agree, things are really quite horrible right now, and I think it's okay to say that. It doesn't mean that they're always gonna be horrible, but right now they are horrible, and unfortunately, it is the most vulnerable people in our communities that are bearing the brunt of it. You know, and a lot of us in our day-to-day lives, if we have any sort of economic comfort, it's like, yes, things are more expensive, but we'll get through this. While there are many people who do not know how they're going to feed their children today.
That's right.
And especially in states that are not New York, California, or frankly, different parts of California, like the middle part. Things can be kind of sketchy there.
Yeah.
So it is kind of interesting to see that we do need to be reaching beyond the converted, which I think a lot of us know, but I would say also part of that is that we have been experiencing some wins, but one of the things that I have noticed in progressive circles, and this is not new, this is not the first time it's been observed, but my goodness, are we reluctant to accept wins when we have them?
Oh yeah.
Are we reluctant to say that was actually useful? Like when, Cory Booker, when he did that thing. At least he did something. Like, I'm not gonna go stand anywhere for 30 hours or whatever. Like, it was something after months and months of nothing. And it made other people in Congress realize, perhaps I can go do something because I want that media attention too. I don't care why you do it, as long as you do it to get to the place that we're all trying to go. And that politician, and I'm really just bad with names, but the one who went to check on the kidnapped Venezuelan man, among the hundreds of kidnapped Venezuelan men and women, he did something. Was it political theater? Perhaps, but we need political theater because Donald Trump is a master at political theater. That man cannot say 3 coherent words together, and yet like 65 million people are like, yes, that's my president. I like him. He sounds smart. And I'm like, no, he really sounds like a blathering idiot. As gets asked about direct policy things that his administration has done, he's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, because he's not actually president. But we'll set that aside. The important takeaway is that we really do have to start acknowledging the wins, and also acknowledging that we're not all going to get along, we're not all going to agree on the exact same things, but man, the purity politics is going to have to stop. Because we are not going to succeed without it. I'm not saying that we welcome the Nazis. Nazis are bad, they're always going to be bad. It's never ever going to be okay to be a Nazi. We are not trying to be in community with them, we are not trying to reach them at all. But we are going to try and reach people who just say, I don't believe in politics. Because that's, first of all, a political thing. And let's get into why.
That's right.
We just have to be better as progressive people. We just do. And I think for so long we have relied, and I include myself in this, we have relied on the fact that we are fighting for the greater good and we are on the right side of history as that's enough. Like, that's the work. But that's not the work, that's the goal. And if we keep sort of, I'm not saying don't infight, fight all you want, fighting is fine. But at the end of the fight, we still have to be in the same car. And so let's work on this, because I really do believe the more we coalesce, the more we come together, the more we are going to be able to not only resist this administration, but hopefully ensure that what is happening now never happens again. I think we all just got too comfortable. We sort of thought, oh, Black president, not all of us, but oh, Black president, everything's gonna be better now. Now I can marry my wife, everything is gonna be better now. This is gonna be a permanent condition. And we took it for granted. And so we have to appreciate all of the gains, and then we have to protect them like our lives depend on it, because some of our lives do very much depend on it.
Maybe another question here, which is, here's what's percolating for me.
I love the word percolate. Bubble, make that coffee, girl. What's
Yeah. I don't see how we get there if we don't take on race in this country.
Yeah.
I don't understand how we do it.
We don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
I don't either. That's the thing that's really sort of keeping me up at night.
Me too.
We live in a deeply segregated world.
Yep.
And a lot of us just sort of notice it perhaps, but then go on with our day like, what can I do?
Yep.
A lot of well-meaning white people, I look at your little pictures on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. Y'all do not have any Black friends. Or you have one. And sometimes it's me. Which, thank you. And so we have to look at how are we going to start desegregating our lives. And for me, this meant moving toward a predominantly Black neighborhood, because I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I'd never lived in a predominantly Black community. And I just sort of assumed that this was always going to be the way it was, until when I bought my house, I realized, oh, I can actually make a different choice. I can actually go live where I see Black people every day, working at Starbucks, at the drive-thrus throughout Starbucks, playing golf on the little golf course. It's lovely. And the more we can just sort of recognize that we don't have to stay segregated, we don't have to take that as the norm. And there are systemic things that we're facing as well. Redlining, the way that real estate is predicated on not allowing certain kinds of people to buy homes in certain neighborhoods. Like, it's also beyond us. So we have to also deal with those things. And a lot of people think that they're not racist, but they're deeply racist. I don't want to name names, but as an academic, I'll be very broad here. As an academic in the humanities, a lot of people I encounter professionally think that they're anti-racist. And they think they're anti-racist because they think racism is bad. But then they will say the most condescending racist shit you have ever heard in your life. And you will look them dead in the eye and be like, I have a PhD that I literally earned over 8 years. What are you talking about? As if you are there by the benevolence of whiteness. And so, like, whiteness and anti-racism have to be addressed everywhere. And a lot of people in spaces like this really do think like this is the Mecca. We've addressed it here. We've addressed it at Cal. We've addressed it at Rutgers, etc. You have not begun. And nobody wants to hear it. I would also say in the queer community, this is a major, major problem. It really, really is. Grindr alone could tell this story.
Maybe. I didn't know we was gonna go there.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, the race problem is real, and it's in every part of our lives.
So how do we keep, I mean, I feel like we have to keep talking about how we keep the rubber band from contracting. This whole thing about obeying in advance, it includes canceling the things that we have fought for and won. It includes being like, well, that was nice while we had it. No, what? It's ours, right? And so I'm curious, just as we turn to y'all soon, what can we do to keep the rubber band from closing?
Gosh. I think that's a question we're going to have to continue to ask. I don't even have a great answer to that question. I'm trying to figure it out myself. Almost everyone I know is grappling with this question. I look to elders in times like this because I notice a lot of them are just checked out. They're just tired because they're like, I've done this fight 5 times and I don't have the energy for a 6th. And so that for me is the canary in the coal mine, that we really do have to take that responsibility on ourselves because so many people have already done this work enough. And that means also connecting with younger generations. I'm involved with this United Nations Committee for Women, and we're coming up with a plan of work for the year. And one of the things I noticed in one of our planning meetings, and it's all really smart, well-meaning people, and it is truly a global forum. It's people from everywhere, so it is not at all American-centered. But it was that everyone seemed to me to be over 45, except for one young woman. And so a lot of us were saying, you know, this is great, but we are going to have to bring in young people and figure out ways of communicating this kind of work to young people and engaging them. And so, not that young people should take on all of the labor, but I do think that we have to be looking to young people not only to join, but to lead. And to trust them to tell us what they think without trying to then reframe it into something that we as older people can understand, accept, etc. Because they have some interesting ideas. I have 2 nieces, well, I have lots of nieces, but I have 2 that are 13 and 14, and they kind of believe that the world is good and that anything is possible. And I'm very interested in that there is an age where people still haven't given up yet. Of course, there's an amount of privilege that goes along with that. But I am interested in younger people and what they have to say, and I find that the older I get, the less I want to lead, and the more I want to listen and follow, perhaps, because I don't know that I have any good answers, but I do know other people do.
That's good. I think we have to continue to do it anyway. That's the thing I've been sitting with a lot. You know, policies are rules that we create, but mostly that we agree to follow or not, right? And so I just keep being like, okay, well, all these things that we have fought for and won, we should just keep doing them anyway, right? We should just keep doing them anyway. Like, we're not actually gonna let you take our immigrant neighbors. We're actually just not gonna do that. We're just gonna
And
not.
when people have resisted, the resistance has worked.
Every single time,
Yes.
actually.
One
Every
of the
single
things is
time.
that this administration folds real fast. They fold like a wet paper towel.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying like it's easy to write, the one you get from the dollar store.
The dollar store, give it up.
They are
Susceptible.
They are
to-
susceptible. I'm going to make a very bad analogy, but it's also funny. You remember in Jurassic Park when the game warden is talking about the velociraptors and how they keep testing the fence for weaknesses?
Yeah.
That's totally what they're doing. They're trying to figure out, what can I get away with? And I have no doubt that every night they sit in the Oval Office and
That's
laugh about, like, could you believe we got to do that?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, like they let us do it.
yeah, we have to stop letting them do it, and in ways that are reasonable and realistic for our lives. I'm not going to suggest that everyone has it in them to like stand in front of a tank and put a flower in it.
No,
But
we didn't talk about none of that, but like,
no, they're not taking our friends. Araceli is staying here today.
yeah, we're not letting you ban books. We reading these books, we're gonna read them, we're gonna TikTok them, we're gonna Instagram them, we're gonna do all the things. Those are our things. We won those things. We're not giving it up.
Yeah, and a lot of times, and I feel like this really leads into the whole nonprofit industrial complex and all that, a lot of times it's not that they're going to stop us from doing it, it's that they're going to yank the funding, right? And so we have to decide, like, we're not going to depend on you to fund certain things. Like, we're going to keep doing what we do that's about our liberation, whether, you know, it's government funded or this or that funded or not. And frankly, as Black people, we were always the ones who got passed over for the funding a lot of the time anyway, and we had to decide, like, what were we gonna commit ourselves to. And I see that we have 5 more minutes before we take audience questions, and I just have one other question for y'all, which is sort of in this mode that has come up a lot in conversations today, particularly with Black women, around joy. And around, the thing I'll say is, in the before times, there was a way, like, I'm not a big fan of capitalism, but there was always some part of me that was real strivey. Like, I'm striving and I'm gonna try and do this and that for the future of blah, blah, blah. And I don't really have time to do the fun and joyful thing now because I'm on my grind, right? And if there's one thing that the election really shifted for me is like, you know what? I don't know what the future is. I'm about to try and get with this joy right now, you know? And figure out how the joy can be part of the organizing and the resistance, right? And so I'm really curious with both of you, you know, as Black feminists, as folks, you know, trying to change the, like, what are your joy practices? Or, like, where are you finding joy in this current bullshit?
Joy is hard, but you know, I've had a rough few years. My brother died 3 years ago at 43, and it was very unexpected. He left behind 2 children, and he was a single father for one of them. So, you know, now my nephew is basically, my wife and I call him our fucking 29-year-old son. And I say fucking because he is a lot of work. But then my mom died in February, and it was not unexpected, but it was also unexpected because it just wasn't supposed to happen then. And so once she died, like, once the worst thing you can imagine happens, once the unimaginable happens, it's horrible, and I don't even know how to wake up most days, but like now I'm just like, fuck it. Well, I'm gonna try it. And I'm getting a lot of joy in just saying, life really is way shorter than you think it is. And whenever I'm denying myself some joy, and therapy helps, why am I denying it? As I tell my students all the time, like, no one is going to like you more when you hate yourself or you deprive yourself. In fact, they're just going to hate you more because they're going to try and take more from you. And so I'm trying to find ways of holding firm to my boundaries, which is a very joyful thing to do. Make unpopular decisions, which is very challenging, but there's a lot of joy in deciding, I don't care what you think, I'm going to do what I want. And then I'm not talking about like serial killer stuff. I'm talking about normal stuff. And then also just spending time with my loved ones and doing just the kinds of things that make me feel joy. Like, I am admitting I'm a member of the Beehive. I love Beyonce. I don't want to hear a thing you have to say critically about her. She has a whole secret life where she does all the things y'all want her to do anyway. So like, just enough. She's incredible. I just watched her perform in New York on the day 4 in the rain for 3 hours. She did not slip. Her dancers did not slip. She was like activated, as if the rain had powered her up.
You heard it here.
It was weird because we saw her on opening night in LA, so we did have something to compare it to, and this show was even better. And so like admitting like, you know, it's okay to stand someone who's worth standing. It's okay to hang out with your dog. I don't like dogs, but I have one. And his name is Max, and he weighs 10 pounds, and he thinks he's a German Shepherd. Oh, he's so cute. He's a multi-poo, and like I'm always like, we sing songs to him. He has 10 names. He's in the bed now, even though I'm black, and I'm like, you're a black dog. And it's your white mama that lets you do all this. But then when he gets out of bed, I'm like, why are you leaving your bed? And so I really am just trying to just live and care less about what other people think. There's a lot of joy in that.
I'm sure.
What about you, Lisa? He's so cute though. I mean, oh, he's so cute. I just squeeze his little face and I'm just like, oh.
I love that. And you know what? You should have all of that.
Yes.
For real. Just, you know, not in the kitchen. That's the black part.
Oh,
Not in the
yeah,
kitchen.
I mean, there are
They
limits.
can be in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
So wow. I have been really committed to friends and like spending homie time that is not about politics. It's just about being, you know, having some good food, having a martini, you know, like feeling alive and practicing the art of being alive is deeply important, especially when life is so precarious right now. Also just really resonate with that thing that happens when you lose people that you love, where you get so clear about what you are gonna do and what you ain't gonna do. It's just so clear. So that also brings me joy. I perform for no one.
Say that again.
I perform for no one. I have recommitted to Sex and the City in a way that I did not know was possible.
Wait, the new version, the old version,
No,
all
see,
the versions.
I'm all the versions. I'm the 3 movies, and Just Like That, and the 7 seasons, 6 seasons, 7 seasons, 6 seasons, 6 seasons. It's just, we need, I love. You know, like, because I wake up with the news, and then I give myself about like an hour and a half, and I'm like, oh, I've seen what's gonna go on today, and on comes Sex and the City.
I know that's right.
I say, what season are we going in today? Are we doing Aiden? Are we doing Big? You know, are we doing that writer guy? Remember the writer guy?
Absolutely. And you know what? The movies are much better than
They
people
are
give them
good.
credit
It's
for.
true. Don't sleep on
I
the
will
movies.
watch those movies on an airplane any day of the week.
And I often have. So, like, things like that are like my okay to get bys. And then the other thing that is really bringing me joy, fire pits. Fire pits and fireflies. Okay, so being from here, I didn't know anything about fireflies till I moved to the South. Baby, I'm like a small child whenever I see these little things that are just like their booties are lighting up and I don't understand
following the recipe and just seeing where it takes me, especially with like savory foods. Like maybe I will follow that step. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. And it never goes well. Every single time I'm like, I'm gonna zhuzh it up and pretend I'm on top.
But see, the cool thing is, this is where I get, if there was a place where I get trad wife, it's cooking. Because I've been trying to make stuff from scratch.
I make my own ketchup.
Well done.
Wow. I make my own ketchup and my own steak sauce, and it's worth it. I have to say, they are onto one thing. Just one.
You heard it here. So I want to transition us into Q&A from the audience, but let's hear it for Roxane Gay. So we got to have a little Q&A, y'all. And, I'm glad that we're of like minds because you talked about wanting to hear from young people. So I want to open it up first and foremost to anybody under 18 who has a question. Audience, repeat this to me. I'm going to say the word question. Thank you. So when you come up, I know you have things to say, that's great, but we really want questions for our people up here. Is there anybody under 18 who wants to ask a question? Anybody under 18 in the building who wants to ask a question?
No pressure, it's not a test.
No, thank you, it's not, but we just want to create some space because we know it's about to get crowded up in here. Okay. I want to ask, is there anybody from the Haitian community who wants to ask a question? Any of my Haitian folks want to ask a question? That's all right. All right. And where are my black women at trying to ask a question? Yes, okay. So, excellent. Let's go ahead and go with that first question.
Good to see you too. Oh, you got the mic. White man won't let me have the mic. That's Reparations. Okay, my question is for Roxane. I have two questions. I have one for Roxane and one for my buddy. Roxane, I know you edited this incredible book. And so if you were to create the Portable Feminist Reader today, are there any significant changes you would make or new directions you would explore?
No, because it just came out. In that I put together the book I wanted to put together.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate in that Penguin let me. The only thing I would do is have a bigger budget to afford more. Like, what a lot of people don't understand is that these books are dictated by budget. Permissions are hella expensive. And so I only would wish for more resources to include more. And if I was to add one more section, it would be one on global feminisms. I'm very clear in the introduction that you can't be everything to everyone in every book. And I didn't want to inexpertly dabble in global feminisms and do it a disservice by including like 2 or 3 pieces. And so I did leave that out. And that's what I would put in another version.
Oh, right on. Thank you for answering that. And I too adopted a multi-poo, 15 years old.
Oh.
Just started coming into the bed. I have a white wife as well.
You know, we wear it proudly.
So you feel me.
Yeah, I do feel you all the way. I get it. Because the first time he came in the bed, I was just like, excuse you.
Right.
Excuse you.
Exactly. Alicia, hi. How's it going?
It's going.
Good. So, as you know, the purpose of power is such a vital resource for anyone interested in social change. And I appreciate you for putting your brilliance in this book. And you know me as an activist. People March, y'all, June 22nd. So, what advice, we're talking about the youth and them having to, take the baton and lead us, right? And give them their props because they're teaching us right now. So if, what advice would you give to young aspiring organizers who are just starting their journey as activists or in activism?
Thank you for the question. The first piece of advice I would give is spend time understanding power. I think I didn't understand power when I first started organizing. And the problem with that, right, is you do a lot of work without being clear about what your end goal is. The other piece of advice that I would give to somebody just starting out right now is to really lean into your architect self, like learning how to build stuff. So much of how I was trained, at least, was very much about how to dismantle things that were harmful, but not so much about what do we build instead that is contending for attention, for allegiance, right, for investment. And we're in a moment of building that is really necessary. Like, there's lots that is crumbling, and there's a lot of space. There's a set of people who are building things for the world that they want us to live in. We can do the same. We have to do the same, and that means we have to really lean into not just the what is wrong with the way that this thing is functioning right now. We're all very literate in that. But how would we do it different?
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So we have about 10 more minutes, so I'm going to ask my folks in line to ask questions real brief, and you know, for y'all to answer necessarily succinctly, just so we can get to as many as possible.
It's fine. We just do it anyways.
Hello. I wrote this question to myself yesterday, and now that I'm in front of y'all, I'm like, I need to ask out loud. And it was, what level of success is a Black woman allowed to have before it's okay to tear her down again? And I was thinking about that a lot, and as you guys were talking about Beyonce and Part of the Hive, I was like, okay, this is a safe space because I think you know what I'm talking about. And just, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm ambitious, and I feel like there's this level where like that's not gonna be cute anymore. Like it's cute if I'm struggling, right? And I'm just curious if, like not what that dollar amount is or what that Instagram following is, but if that is something that you all have dealt with and think about.
I think about it all the time because it's very real. People love a Black woman when she's struggling, when she has a sad story to share, when she doesn't have what they have. And a lot of Black women in the workplace will talk about how often we are asked to be mentored, like little pets. And oftentimes it's people who have less experience, knowledge, and success than you who want to mentor you. When someone asks me if I need a mentor, I'm like, what do you think you could mentor me about? Now, let me be clear, I have mentors. They're Black women. And so it's not that you can reach a stage where you shouldn't be mentored, but it's a way of diminishing your achievement and success. And so the answer is it doesn't matter what level, it's every level of success. And people resent it, and they hate it, and sometimes that resentment comes from very surprising places, like your peers. It is what it is. And I struggle with it a lot because I care too much, but leaving Twitter was super helpful. There's nothing good on social media, and no matter what you may think, it's not giving you what you need. You're not making any money off of social media. Well, unless you're on like TikTok, but I have found that less noise and more just focus. All I can control is my work, and my work is flawed, and I will get better, and I will listen to criticism, and that's offered in good faith. But when people resent my success, I can't do anything about that because what they're then suggesting is that I should be less good, that I should pretend I'm not excellent, pretend I don't work my ass off constantly, and I don't have I don't, thank you. I'm not made that way. Not anymore. What about you?
oxygen a few months ago when I went to have my locks touched up, and my loctician, 30 years old, said she didn't vote because she didn't like either candidate. And I needed oxygen in that moment. I didn't even know what to do. So I want to know, please tell me, what do you say? Because it's all about that moment when you're facing that person that says something you don't even know what to do with. And it's crucial that you find out why. What do you say? Please.
I hear you. What would you have wanted to see? This is what you say.
Oh,
This
okay.
is what you say.
I'm
This
sorry.
is what you say. I know, because here's the thing. I do get it. I do get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was raised in a different way, where I twitch if I don't do the thing, because I have my mom in my ear, like, people died, and like, that's true, and also, there's a bigger story behind that, but I vote. I vote every time. I completely understand why people want to turn off. And even though there are big consequences for that, you don't actually move somebody to participating without listening and affirming, I get it. It has consequences, yes, but listening to the why tells you a lot about what might get them there. And to be frank, there's a lot of work to be done to get them there. My braider, 25, I got her to vote. She did not in this last one. I get why. What are people being offered? I now live in a different state than California, and so I really understand how important it is. And I ran up in there when I thought it was going to be old boy, and I was high-fiving the poll workers. I slept well. Do you understand what I'm saying? But we have to not do a thing with people where for them to participate, they have to understand all the things. Actually, people need things that we can provide, and we have to do that work. And part of that work is not chastising them off the jump that they didn't do a thing. We feel it deeply, but to get them to do something different, we actually need to be talking to other folks about what they need to be doing to get your loctician to vote. We have more influence over there too, and we leave those people with our dollars, all those consultants that get paid to not do the thing. Those are the people that we need to be talking to and putting pressure on. So that would be my piece.
I agree with most of that. I understand that instinct, and I'm working on it in myself. To not just be like, I don't care. They're not your friends. You're not trying to make friends. But there is a reason so many people stayed home, and part of that reason is that we didn't have great choices. Now, I firmly believe Kamala Harris would have been fine as a president, and even good.
Agreed.
Because the alternative was Donald Trump. But what your hairdresser was really saying is that I don't trust this broken system. And so what I think we have to do as people who can sort of look at this big picture and recognize, yes, we have to go with the one that is less bad, is that we need to create a political system where we're not choosing between two evils, where we're choosing between someone who's good. Ideally, we'd be choosing between multiple good people. We're so far from that, and part of that means addressing the problems within the DNC.
Yes.
And the crony politics, the gerontocracy, and this insistence that 2 or 3 people should be running the country and making these horrific choices. Like the guy they put in with cancer over the young candidate. I mean, it's shocking. And so Alicia's right. We do have to just listen, that we can do in our day-to-day lives to encourage better. And for me, I am no longer giving money to candidates who don't need it.
That's right.
Because so much of like, we're told, I donated. Why? These DNC-backed candidates don't need your money. The guy that's running for mayor against Andrew Cuomo right now, that's who needs your money. So, yeah.
And I'll just say, as a Californian, you know, I'm a registered Democrat, but I'll say this. The Democrats have had a supermajority in the California state everything for decades. Where is our Medicaid for all? Where is our free college? Where are any number of things that are supposedly on their platforms that they could pass? Oh, but those things are a problem for corporations and billionaires. And so the Democrats have like a liberal intention, but the reality of who is buying our politicians and who is, you know, in this pay-to-play system, that's what your hairdresser is speaking to. And folks see that and they know that. And it's not that their lives can't get worse under this current situation, it's that Democrats are promising that their lives will get better in ways that they're not gonna deliver based on how beholden they are to billionaires and corporations. And that's part of why we need to be pushing them from the left. So I wanna say we're almost out of time. Let's get the last 3 questions, all 3 of them real quick, and then y'all can kind of answer as you choose. So just super, super brief questions, and then we'll popcorn it.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, social media have came out a lot in this talk, and we all love like the joys, little dogs, cats on social media, but we also know there's so many critiques, and I do think it gave us, like, everybody has like a voice, a platform to voice our opinion, but at the same time, it gave us into like a deep performative culture. And my question is, how do we organize and activate individuals in this culture that we have to perform without avoid to be like a political hobbyist, where like we do nothing but perform? And how do we activate the people around us who only do that?
Thank you. Next question?
Wait, we're not gonna answer?
No, we're gonna take all 3. Yeah. Take all 3. And y'all can pick and choose. You're like, all right, I got it. So what was social media? Performative, yes.
I was curious if you had any thoughts, advice, general pontifications about working and organizing in progressive spaces across cultural and racial categories, especially as somebody who's been working specifically in Asian queer spaces. I really want to deepen my understanding of how to work with people of different cultures, and especially coming from a culture that has very, very deeply rooted anti-Blackness, how to work around that and how to really address the needs of the Black people that we work with.
Thank you. 3rd question?
It might all work together. How do you keep yourself from being angry? As a person as a Black woman who's receiving something different than a large percentage of the audience in what you're saying, and what I want to hold for myself is different than, I think, the joy piece that, you know, where other people might find joy or have time for. You all are working hard and deserve the joy. Like, so how do you keep from getting angry?
Can we start there?
Yeah, that's why we take 3. Start right there.
I'm mad all the time.
All the time.
I'm mad right now. Seriously, it's not about not being mad or keeping myself from being angry, and in fact, doing that makes me angrier. Because who am I doing that for?
Anger is an emotion. Anger is an emotion that tells you something about what's hurting you.
So that's important, and so pay attention to it. The question then becomes, what do you do with it? And what I'm trying to do is channel that anger into like a deep, abiding love for people. That's the work for me, personally, but please don't keep yourself from being angry. That is like at the core of what makes you a human being. Just pay attention to what's underneath that anger. What is it trying to tell you about what you need? And how you might move
I would say that 99% of the people who ask me that question are women, or people who present as women, and oftentimes are Black, because we are told that our anger is toxic, that it is the thing that defines us. Anger is an entirely reasonable response to the state of the world. It just is. And so I don't want to keep from being angry at all. For many years in my career, I found myself saying, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'm like, what was I trying to prove? Why wouldn't I be angry when I read the news? It's infuriating. And the levels of injustice, and one thing that has been so radicalizing, success is radicalizing, but not in the way most people think. Nothing makes me more progressive than seeing how much easier my life gets with each progressive year and level of success. It should be this way for everyone. The level of nonsense that you are allowed to sort of opt out of at certain levels is ridiculous. But it's actually also very simple. Like, it should be this easy for all of us. And so I use my anger as fuel to try and ensure that as many people as possible can benefit from abundance. And so abundance is how I really try to channel my anger. Because so much of what we're taught in this country is that this is a world of scarcity. But it's not. I travel from one end of this country to the other. I travel around the world. Shit is abundant. Money is abundant. A few people are hoarding it. But this is a land of abundance. And when I remember that, it helps me to be abundant with the opportunities that I can create, to take advantage of the abundance that comes my way. I'm not even spiritual, but I'm like, no, we can do better. And so I would say, how can you embrace that anger? It doesn't define me, and don't let it define you. It's just one of the many emotions I feel on any given day, or quite frankly, at any given moment. And it's energizing.
Yeah, and I want to add one thing about anger. Yesterday, Prentice Hemphill and Mia Birdsong, some of you were here, had this really powerful conversation about, like, especially for Black people and Black women, this way that people like calm down, you know, and you know, we are California and we breathe deeply and we meditate and all those things are beautiful. And so there is a way that we want to be able to take deep breaths and, you know, regulate our nervous systems. So it's like breathe deep, but also go off, right? And figure out where are your safe places to go off. Because we don't want to, we have a million reasons to be enraged, and we can't survive carrying that shit around in our bodies. We also have to have practices to get it out, not just breathe deep, calm down, numb out, distract, but to go off, to scream, to, you know, beat on the bed, those therapy sessions, whatever it is that we do, we want to get it out of our bodies and be entitled to be big and loud in those moments of getting that out of our bodies. So I want to add that too.
Shout out to the therapy sessions. Social media, performative. How do we organize in a context where this shit is crazy? You know, I was gonna say at first, like, it's really important to take your work offline. And I still think that's true for a whole bunch of reasons, including we don't own that shit. But I will also say that I know that online spaces are really important to people, and they do serve a purpose. And so I think at the crux of your question is more about the performance of it rather than the platform. You know, I do think that this question of power is really important. Because if you understand what power is and what power isn't, it's actually way easier to understand what you're performing and who you're performing for. Okay, so power, right, being the ability to make decisions over your life and the lives of other people, and if you are trying to make interventions around how power operates, right? You're gonna make different choices about what you do, what you take on, who you take on, that way you take them on, and it
does actually drive away from performing, because there are some things that actually do interrupt power, and there are a lot of things that actually don't. I'll stop it there.
I'll say that over the years, I have taught myself to micromanage less. You don't know the extent of someone's activism necessarily. And I think a lot of us get riled up when we see people on social media who are like posting the little user pic, all black. Oh. But if that's all they can do, that's all they can do. If that's all they have capacity for, I wish you had more. I wish you would do more, but maybe you can't for a range of reasons, from ability, neurodivergence, to I just don't have the time, or I don't have the inclination. I don't know anymore, and so I'm trying to judge less. Like with my writing, all you can control is what you do. And so how are you taking the efforts that you put into online activism and translating them into day-to-day activism in your life? What are you doing to work with mutual aid organizations in your community? What are you doing? Because that's the only thing you can control. And you can, of course, try to invite people into that with you. I got into doing some of the mutual aid stuff I do in LA because my assistant and her friends for 5 years have been feeding an unhoused encampment every Sunday. Self-funded, and they're all Hollywood assistants, making, well, except for my assistant, making not enough money. And, and I'm proud of that. And when I saw that they were doing it without any infrastructure, just on their own, going to Costco to buy the little shelves that you put the food in, cooking it in their kitchens, et cetera, like anyone can do anything. And so just find something. Let yourself be recruited if you're not going to be the one to recruit, and let people do on what they're going to do online. It's just, life is too short to be micromanaging other people's spaces online. It's frustrating. We all get frustrated, and that's okay also.
Amen.
Feel the feeling.
And then anti-Blackness working in coalition.
Yes. And the nonprofit. Shout out to you. These are big, good questions. Big, good, meaty, juicy questions. So, I want to say a thing about the anti-Blackness thing and in spaces and in organizations, and it is in the culture. It's in the culture. So some of what you're doing right now is really important, which is like naming it and acknowledging it, which you would think would be the most basic step, but it's one that lots of people don't take. The other thing I would say, honestly, is that some of where anti-Blackness is allowed to flourish is in the lack of relationships with Black people. I loved what you said earlier, like, oh yeah, I'll be like, Black Lives Matter, you have no Black friends. That's like, no, it's like a real thing. And so I'm not encouraging you to build relationships that are not authentic. I'm not encouraging you to build relationships where you ask somebody to like teach you what's it like to be Black and what do I need to know. But like, if you have real relationships with Black people and the people that you work with, you will see in the going on of people's day how they are dealing with and how we are dealing with these layers of contradictions that have to get addressed. But that fundamentally, I think, happens in relationship. The last thing I would say here is I'm really, really grateful to you for the vulnerability in your question. These vehicles that we work inside of are really complicated. They are really complicated, and it's not for the faint of heart. So keep chipping away at the questions, keep lifting the questions, and keep being unafraid to say things like, we gotta fix this, we gotta work on this. What are the things we can do every day, not once a quarter in a retreat or that kind of thing? What are the things that we can do every day, either to provoke ourselves to be more honest, to create a culture in an organization or inside of a vehicle where people can be honest and vulnerable with each other, but also, again, I'm going to keep hammering on this question, how does power operate in this vehicle? That's always the part people don't want to talk about. There are dynamics and relationships of power in these vehicles that have political, social, racial, gender, all the dynamics. Y'all have to look at those, and it might mean you have to change the way that you operate if you're really trying to take some of this stuff on. Can I just say one last thing, though? I am also not a believer in the I am, therefore whatever I say is actually how it operates. That's performance to me. Like, the interrogation of how power functions and how we function inside of it means that we are simultaneously, right? Dr. Crenshaw tells us this. We are simultaneously oppressor and oppressing and oppressed, right? And so this is not a thing where you create like an affinity group where people just get to like tell you, because I'm Black, this is what I want these things to happen. That should not happen in any context. It is really about an honest, rigorous grappling with how does this stuff function? What are we doing that are perpetuating these dynamics? And all of us are to some degree in some way. And what can we now do to try to interrupt that in real and not symbolic ways? That was helpful.
I would just add that oftentimes we treat these sort of interracial frictions as an endpoint. And I think you should just then ask yourself the question, and? It shouldn't be a stopping point. Okay, that means we can't move any further. It's uncomfortable. So let's name it. Let's bring it out into the open. This anti-Blackness is here. And it goes in all multiple directions depending on which constituents you're working with. But it doesn't mean it's the end of the work. I think of the South in this regard. The South is an interesting model. People love to sort of defame the South. But people there, it's flawed. It's real flawed. But people there do live together, work together, and function together in a way that is far more honest and desegregated than here. And the middle of the country and the North. They're like, yes, I'm racist, and I'm gonna go get a drink with Bill from the office. And so, it's just the way it is. And that's a simplification. It's much more complicated than that. But it's just, every time I go there, people are like, oh, aren't you uncomfortable? And I'm like, no, I know where things stand. Whereas in New England, it's like, I know where things stand, but they don't know I know. So I would encourage you to not look at this as the end point, like, oh, there's this uncomfortable thing, which means that we can't move forward. I think that we are all aware of the different prejudices we hold within our communities, and so just how do we bring it to light, and then find ways to work across racial divisions without letting it sort of, without, you know, yes, okay, the racism is there, and that's, what else can we do? The work has to go on, because if we all wait for some Shangri-La where everyone is accepting of everyone, and we're racism-free, oh my God, I can, show me the way, I want to go there too, but until we get there, life has to go on, this work has to continue, so just continue doing that work, and I will echo what Alicia said, that was I think it was really great for you to ask that question, it's an important one.
Sure. So my final question before we go to sign books is, you know, what is it that you're working on now, or what is it that you want this room of people to know about that you're involved in or into? So we'll just go down the line. Alicia, what you got? What you working on? What you excited about? What you want these people to know?
Oh, all the things. What I want you to do, actually, is it's like a little call to action thing. I'm gonna go ahead and shout out the Working Families Party. I do think that we need to build a new political system, and I think having more vehicles and more political homes for people that actually are grounded in folks' lived experience, but also not corporate funded, is important.
So join the Working Families Party.
Roxane, what you got?
I would say one sort of self-involved thing and one not. My wife and I recently bought the rumpus, and yeah, it's very exciting. And I mean, transition is always a little bumpy, but in the end, I think it's going to be really awesome. And so I hope that people will start getting back to it and reading it and engaging and sending us your work. We are going to be paying writers. They pay writers now too, by the way, but we're going to try and do a little better because we can. And so just, support the rumpus. It's great. And it's a volunteer army of very committed and passionate people behind it. And then I would just echo what Alicia said again, because supporting other political parties right now is so important. And then also trying to change the ones that we have. Now again, Republicans, we don't know her. Great gowns, beautiful gowns. But we can change the Democratic Party. There are some interesting people at work. Lauren Underwood, Ayanna Presley, yes. AOC, I'm sorry, I think she's interesting, I like her. And she has charisma, and I'm sorry, but again, political theater matters, and she is smart, she does listen, she does understand that not everyone makes a living wage. And so really we can try and support these candidates more. And so let's all just do a little more research on the candidates who are not necessarily the ones that are being foisted on us as the only choice or the best choice, because we've seen where that has gotten us. It has gotten us to this very moment. We can do better, and we can demand better. And we forget that sometimes, especially as marginalized people whose votes are assumed. Like, yeah, you're right, I am gonna vote for you, but in the meantime, you're gonna earn it. And so make them work for your votes.
Yes. And I just want to shout out, we've been talking about Beyonce. That's why I labeled this cultural organizing project Formation, right? Because we got to have a little stealth these days. And speaking of stealth, I love, Alicia, that you shouted out Working Families Party. The Working Families Party is not officially part of this because this is a 501c3 activity. But if you were to come on Saturday, June 21st for the Freedom Songs or the High School Dance Party or the Spoken Word and Live Music Action or the All Ages DJ Dance, I happen to know that there will be members of the Working Families Party lurking about, encouraging you to get excited about their party that won 78 of their 130 elections in California alone in 2024. And they might share their vision of creating California as a progressive model for the nation. So I'm just letting you know to come grab one of these flyers and holler at this joy-based cultural intergenerational organizing project. So meet us in the lobby. We want you to buy some of their books and get them to sign them, but please give it up for Roxane Gay.